Hi everyone! For my first video I decided to do a palette collection slash declutter. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with Anastasia Beverly Hills. Right here I have the Master Palette by Mario. It is a really nice neutral colored palette with a lot of jewel tone shimmers. However, I just don't use it that much. The only colors I really use are Isabel, Violetta, and Hollywood. So I think I'm gonna declutter this one. The next palette is the Subculture palette, and even though a lot of people dislike this palette, I for one really like this palette. Aside of Cube, All-Star, and Rowdy, which I'm not crazy about, I still think this palette is very gorgeous and unique to my collection, so I'm going to be keeping this one. The next palette is the Modern Renaissance palette. I really enjoy this palette. I love taking it with me when I go traveling to Australia. This is a really nice palette with an array of cool and warm tone shades. I think you could get a lot of looks out of this, so I do like it. Starting with my Kat Von D palettes, I have 4. This is the Alchemist palette. I really do enjoy this palette as a topper over lipsticks and as a highlighter, so I'm gonna keep this one. The next palette is the Pastel Goth palette. This was a gift from my boyfriend on Valentine's Day this year. I really do enjoy this palette even though I don't reach for it that much. I think it's a nice palette to have a wash of color because they're not too pigmented. This is the Monarch palette by Kat Von D. For the longest time I kept this palette because I think this orange color is so unique to my collection. I really enjoy it, but I just don't get a lot of use out of it, and it's not worth keeping a whole palette for one color, so I'm gonna declutter this one. The next palette is the Metal Matte palette. I don't use this palette as much as I should. However, it took me a long time to get this palette. I actually ordered it from the Sephora Australia website, and it took forever for me to get it from someone that I know in Australia, so I'm gonna keep this one. Next off, I'm gonna start with my Morphe collection. This is the Morphe and Kathleen Lights collab. I really do enjoy this palette. I think it's a really good value. It was only $15. Some of the colors are really gritty, like this red color right here. And this black got hard pen, and I really don't enjoy this black, but aside of that, I do enjoy this palette, and even though this color is very gritty, it is still workable, so I'm gonna keep this one. This is my Morphe 35O palette. I really do enjoy this palette, especially this section. I don't reach for the browns as much as I should. I think I'm gonna keep this palette because I do enjoy this color and this color very much. I think they are like liquid metal, so I'm gonna keep this palette. The next palette is the 35F palette. I enjoy the shimmers in this palette, but I don't reach for this palette much. If there's a way that I can depot this palette without ruining the shades, I will. That way I could get rid of the rest, but for now I'm gonna keep it until I figure out how to depot it. This is the Jaclyn Hill palette, her collab with Morphe. I just got this palette last week, and I really enjoy it so far. I'm not too crazy about this little section down here because I feel like they're a little gritty and dry. However, the rest of the palette is really nice, so I'm gonna keep it for now. Next, for my Too Faced palettes, I have the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes. I just got this palette about 2 days ago, so I've only used it twice so far, and I'm really enjoying it, but if I realize that I don't need it as much as I think I would, I'm gonna return it, but for now it's staying. This palette is the Too Faced Eyeshadow Insurance Policy palette. This is a really old palette. I have messed it up when I tried depotting it. I think I'm gonna get rid of this palette. I just don't use it much, so. The next palette is the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. I really do enjoy this palette even though I don't use it as much as I should. I just got it this past Christmas from my parents. I think it's the only palette in my collection that's mostly cool tone, so I'm gonna keep it. The next palette is the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. I have the older packaging, that's the really thick packaging. I used to like this palette at its time. This was my first high-end palette and I used it a lot. I hit pan on these two shades right here. However, I just don't use it anymore. I have colors that are similar in my collection that I like better than this, so I'm gonna declutter it. The next palette is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I really do enjoy this palette. For the longest time I kind of neglected it, but now that I'm starting to reach for it more, I do enjoy it. I love the mattes in this palette, as well as this shade called Luscious, and so I'm gonna keep this one. The next brand I'm going to be talking about is Juvia's Place. This is the Saharan palette. I really do enjoy the shimmers on this palette, however the mattes I don't enjoy. If you notice, I kind of hit hard pan on the black, this brown, and this orange color. You could still work with them, but I just don't enjoy that, but I'm going to be keeping it for the shimmers. This is the Masquerade palette by Juvia's Place. This is the mini edition. I really enjoy this palette. This is my favorite of all of the palettes by Juvia's Place, so I'm going to be keeping this one. This is the Nubian 2 by Juvia's. These eyeshadow pans are really big. I really do enjoy this blue, green, and this copper color. However, I just don't reach for this palette that much, so should I declutter? I think I'm going to declutter it. The next section is going to be my Tarte collection. Tarte is my favorite brand. So I don't think I'm going to declutter any of these, honestly. So I have the Maneater palette. I do like this when I took it with me to go traveling to Australia as well. So I'm going to keep this one. This is the Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette. I, for the longest time, thought I did not need this, but a YouTuber actually talked me into it, so I got it and I'm so glad I did. If you can still get it, I think it's on sale on TarteCosmetics.com. So I highly recommend this palette. This is the Tartelette, the original one. I purchased this when it first came out and I lost that palette, so I repurchased it, and this is my repurchase, and I really enjoy it. I feel like I like this formula a little better than the first time it came out. I don't know if they changed it or if it's just because this is a newer palette. I just need to reach for it more, but I'm still keeping it. This is the Tarte's Pro palette. I got it this past Christmas. This is my favorite palette in my collection. As you can tell, I already hit pan on 2 shades. It has really nice mattes, and even though some of these darker ones are a little bit drier, it's still workable. And I really enjoy this palette, so I'm gonna keep it. This is just a blank Z palette from Tarte, so nothing special, but I'm gonna keep it. Next, I will do my Urban Decay palettes. I think these are it. So I have the Urban Decay Electric palette. I really do enjoy this palette. If you can still get it, I highly recommend it. So I'm going to keep this palette. I have the Naked 2 and Naked 3. The first Naked palette is warmer tone shades. I'm going to declutter this one because I think makeup has come a long way since this has come out, and I just don't reach for it that much. I feel very limited because it only has 2 matte shades and a bunch of shimmer shades, and I don't reach for it. I don't like it. Same for the Naked 2. I think I'm going to declutter this to my mother because she likes more cool tone smoky eye, which I think this one would be perfect for her. And for the Naked 3, I'm also going to declutter it. This is my favorite out of all the Naked palettes. However, I when it comes to mauve shades, I just reached for my Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette, so I'm going to declutter this one as well. For my BH Cosmetics palettes, I have the Carly Bible Deluxe Edition one, and since I decluttered the Naked 3, I'm going to keep this one. I think these are easier to work with, and you get a lot more variety, and it's a fraction of the price. I think it's exactly half of the price of a Naked 3, so I'm going to keep this palette. This is the BH Cosmetics Shan XO palette. I just recently purchased this, and I already hit pan on the neutral shade here. However, aside of this shade, the orange cream shade, and this burnt red shade, the rest of the palette doesn't really speak to me. So if there's a way that I could depot those shades, I'll give the rest of the shades to my sister. Next are my Coastal Scents palettes. I have 3 palettes that are pre-made, and I have 3 palettes that are of single eyeshadows. I'm going to keep the ones that I have singles of, which is this one. This one's my favorite of all. It's really nice. I get them when they have their 99-cent Hot Pot sale. Here's the other one. I really do enjoy the quality of Coastal Scents single eyeshadows. And here's just a Z palette that I'm trying to fill up with some of their singles. This is the Creative Me palette. I'm going to keep it because I don't have that many colorful eyeshadow palettes that are vibrant. So yeah, I'm going to keep that one. This is the Fall Festival palette, and I really do enjoy this palette. So I'm going to keep this one as well. The only color that's different is this one. I kind of traded it out and put it in my other palette. And lastly, this is the Summer Breeze palette. I'm gonna declutter this one. I don't reach for it as much as I should. So I think I might give it to my sister if she wants it. Alright, the last palettes, these are all of my face palettes. So this is the Becca and Jaclyn Hill collaboration. I used to have the Champagne Pop in a single. However, I decluttered it because I got this palette instead. But now that I have it, I just don't reach for it. I like other highlighters better. I like other blushes better, even though I'm not really a blush person, so I'm going to declutter this because I know that a lot of people do want it now that it's out of stock. So I'm going to declutter it. This is the Fiona Styles Multi-Dimensional Color Palette. I really do enjoy this palette. I got it on sale for about $14.50. I like the blushes in this palette. I love the highlighters, and the bronzer is perfect for my skin tone. So I'm going to keep this palette. The next palette is the Moonchild palette by Anastasia. I recently purchased this even though I own the Alchemist palette by Kat Von D. I do enjoy it when I do use it, so I'm going to keep it because I love iridescent shadows like this. This is the NYX Contour palette. I used to own the Kat Von D one, but I decluttered that one already because I use the shades that I like. And that's what's happening in this one too. I don't use this anymore because I used the shade that worked for me. So I'm just going to declutter the rest to either my sister or my mom, whoever these shades work well with. The next palette is this Yes Please palette by ColourPop. I think these retail for about $15. The pen sizes are really, really small, but I do think it's worth the price the times I have used it. I think the shimmers are very nice and the mattes are very buttery, so I highly recommend this if you could get your hands on it because I know it's always out of stock. This is the only Zoeva palette that I own. It's the Cocoa Blend palette. I bought this when I was on my trip to Australia because they carry Zoeva in their Sephora's there. I highly recommend this palette. I think it's really nice. The times I've used it, I just love my eye look every single time. I think they retail here for about $27 on their online website. So if you could get your hands on this, I recommend it. This is the Lorac Mega Pro 3. I bought this on my birthday last year as a gift to myself. I just don't reach for it much. I notice an ongoing trend that I don't reach for most of my larger palettes, so if I don't reach for this much in the next couple of months, I'm going to declutter it to someone who would like it more. This is the Pure Cosmetics Revolution palette. I got this on a Black Friday sale. They had it for about $15, including, I believe, an eyeliner and a mascara that was deluxe size. I really enjoy this palette. I just don't reach for it much. I think you're very limited in what you could do with this palette, therefore it's not something I reach for, so I'm gonna declutter this one. This is an e.l.f. Cosmetics quad. It has mostly purple shades in it, but I'm gonna declutter this one because I have other shades. Like when I want to go for a purple look, I go for my Masquerade palette or some of my single eyeshadows, so I'm gonna declutter this one. This is the Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette. I think this is pretty old now, so I'm gonna declutter it. I just don't reach for it. The only shade that really inspires me is this one, but I have it in other palettes already, so I'm gonna declutter this one. This is the Smashbox Be Discovered palette. This is really old. I got a lot of use out of it. I think they're really nice, but like I said, it's really old, so it's time to let go of it. So decluttering this one. This is a random palette that my mother gave me. I don't know the brand. I'm assuming it's called Milano. But this is just very old and I don't reach for it. I don't feel inspired when I see this palette, so I'm just going to declutter it. And the last palette is this Makeup Revolution palette called the Flawless 3 Resurrection palette. I bought this when Ulta had 10 times the points on it, and I used it about 3 times, and they're not bad. I'm just not inspired. I have these colors in other palettes, so I'm just going to declutter this one as well. Alright, let's see which ones I've decluttered. So these are the eyeshadow palettes I decided to declutter. I think I did pretty good. I'm getting rid of 18 palettes, so that's more than I thought I would. So yeah, if you guys would like to see any more videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you guys again. Thank you.